Okay, guys, so this chapter is titled The Royal Breakfast. There was a frantic scurry among the palace servants when orders were received from the queen that a 24-foot giant must be seated with her majesty in the great ballroom within the next half hour. The butler, an imposing personage named Mr. Tibbs, was in supreme command of all the palace servants, and he did the best he could in the short time available. A man does not rise to become the Queen's butler unless he's gifted with extraordinary ingenuity, adaptability, versatility, dexterity, cunning, sophistication, sagacity, discretion, and a host of other talents that neither you nor I possess. Mr. Tibbs had them all. He was in the butler's pantry sipping an early morning glass of light ale when the order reached him. In a split second, he had made the following calculations in his head. If a normal 6-foot man requires a 3-foot high table to eat off of, a 24-foot giant will require a 12-foot high table. And if a 6-foot man requires a chair with a 2-foot high seat, a 24-foot giant will require a chair with an 8-foot high seat. Everything, Mr. Tibbs told himself, must be multiplied by 4. 2 breakfast eggs must become 8. 4 rashers of bacon must become 16. 3 pieces of toast must become 12, and so on. These calculations about food were immediately passed on to Monsieur Papillon, the royal chef. Mr. Tibbs skimmed into the ballroom. Butlers don't walk, they skim over the ground. Followed by a whole army of footmen. The footmen all wore knee breeches, and every one of them displayed beautifully rounded calves and ankles. There's no way you can become a royal footman unless you have a well-turned ankle. It is the first thing they look at when you are interviewed. "Push the grand piano in the center of the room," Mr. Tibbs said. Butlers never raised their voices above the softest whispers. 4 footmen moved the piano. "Now fetch a large chest of drawers and put it on top of the piano," Mr. Tibbs whispered. 3 other footmen fetched a very fine Chippendale mahogany chest of drawers and placed it on the top of the piano. "That will be his chair," Mr. Tibbs said. "It is exactly 8 feet off the ground. Now we shall make a table upon which this gentleman may eat his breakfast in comfort. Fetch me 4 very tall grandfather clocks. There are plenty of them around the palace. Let each clock be 12 feet high." 16 footmen spread out around the palace to find the clocks. They were not easy to carry and required 4 footmen to each one. "Place the 4 clocks in a rectangle 8 feet by 4 alongside the grand piano," Mr. Tibbs said. The footmen did so. "Now fetch me the young prince's ping-pong table," Mr. Tibbs whispered. The ping-pong table was carried in. "Unscrew its legs and take them away," Mr. Tibbs whispered, and this was done. "Now place the ping-pong table on top of the 4 grandfather clocks," Mr. Tibbs said. To manage this, the footmen had to stand on stepladders. Mr. Tibbs stood back to survey the new furniture. None of this is in the classic style," he said, "but it will have to do." He gave orders that a damask tablecloth should be draped over the ping-pong table, and in the end, it looked quite elegant.